Everything is going to get spoiled. You have been warned. Dracula Resurrection is one of two Dracula-themed point-and-click adventure games released for the original PlayStation. The other one is called Dracula The Last Sanctuary. Despite what these titles may suggest, Resurrection was actually the first game, and on PC, believe it or not, the Dracula series went all the way to 5 games. Pretty good for something that I had never heard of until right now. It turns out that Dracula Resurrection is a sequel to something, that being the book Dracula.
It's like taking two cans and put them together.
And the title refers to Dracula being resurrected after the events of said novel. Have you ever read the book? I did in high school, and it's pretty unorthodox, in that it's not structured how most books are. You know, with a narrator or a central protagonist that its events are filtered through. Rather, its story is told through a collection of letters written by various characters describing their encounters with one Vlad Dracula the Impaler. Most prominently was Jonathan Harker, who made first contact when he traveled to Transylvania to act as Dracula's realtor/English language coach. Over the course of the book, a bunch of shit happens, and it ends with our friend John cutting off Dracula's head, which is depicted in this game's opening cutscene. Now it's a few years later, and John's wife Mina left him a note saying that Dracula has returned, and she's boarding the first boat to Transylvania to screw his brains out or something.
Dracula's home was summoning me as if he'd returned and wanted me again.
She doesn't really give a good reason, but whatever, we have our premise. Dracula has our wife, and we need to go and get her back. The game starts, and it's a first-person, point-and-click adventure. Not unlike Myst, but unlike Myst, you're not interacting with 2D stills, rather scrollable, 360-degree panoramics. And they're quite high-res for the PS1. Playing this game is like scrolling through a fictional location on Google Street View. If you can't tell, this was originally on PC, and the effect works even better there. Still, even on PS1, I'm impressed. Dracula Resurrection is what I'd call a handsome game. Well, the fidelity anyway, because its characters are grotesque.
Dracula means the son of the dragon. In our country, Transylvania, the dragon is a very evil creature.
What the hell is this guy talking about? Dracula is a dragon?
It's Dracul. Dracul the devil.
Dracul? Is this in any way related to the Count?
I wonder if Dracul is related to Dracula. I'd be stunned.
Welcome, stranger. Welcome to my humble inn.
This innkeeper is a million times scarier than anything else in the game, and might be one of the scariest things I've ever seen in a video game ever. I love when they're done speaking. The CG cutscene ends and it just lands on a still image of that character. This is it. There's no movement. They're just this. It's unnerving.
Go away, and don't come back.
These cutscenes are obviously ridiculous, but they play such a small role. Most of the time you're clicking around Google Street View attempting to figure out where to go or what to do next. The game is super quiet as well. There's no background music or anything, only an ambient sound effect here or there. My largest complaint with Dracula Resurrection is that it can be quite dark. Not in terms of content, I mean literally the screen is too dark, to the point where I've actually artificially increased the brightness on all the footage you've been seeing. This is what it looks like normally, and oftentimes because of this, it's hard to discern interactable objects from the backgrounds, like this stick that you're required to pick up here. Did you see this? Because I didn't. It's also a real where the fuck do you go kind of game. This snow area all looks so similar that I keep getting lost. There's no in-game map or anything. Hell, I don't think there's any maps online either. So you're left to your own devices to figure out where to go. In typical point-and-click fashion, it's way too easy to miss crucial items or interactable objects. Not even just because of the darkness thing, just because there are areas you can go or like objects that you wouldn't even think to try and pick up that you can. For that reason, this is what I'd call a guide game. I clicked around this stupid snow area for a couple hours, barely making any progress at all, until I looked up the guide on GameBoomers.com and realized I missed this slingshot on a screen that I didn't even discover yet. At least for the first half of the game. The second half of the game you might be able to get by without a guide. Here's an early example of just weird point-and-click puzzle solving in this game. There's a guy blocking this hut you need to get into because there's an elevator to an underground passage in there.
Get away from this cabin! Otherwise you'll have to answer to me!
The solution is to take your slingshot, shoot at some owls. You don't even hit them. They'll just fly away and that distracts the guy. which is something I would never consider in a million years. But Dracula Resurrection is actually pretty good as far as the bullshit puzzles go, at least compared to other point and clicks I've played. There's usually at least some logic at play, such as when you need to get this key that Olaf from Advance Wars has. So you need to play this flute to get his attention.
It's the flute belonging to the ruffians who were sitting there earlier.
Do you know what they use this instrument for?
They use it to call each other.
Do you know what melody they play?
Then use your knife to cut the rope holding this outdoor chandelier so it drops on him so you can take the key. Okay, maybe that one's a little weird too. All I know is this opening snow part is fucking terrible. I really can't do it much justice just by speaking about it, but it's aimless. You never know where to go, you never know what to do, what items may or may not be missing. But thankfully this area is only about a third of the game, and after that things get better by quite a bit. Here's how Dracula Resurrection is structured. You start in this big open-ended non-linear snow environment with that inn and the ugly old lady. Eventually you find your way out of here onto a linear path, which is a welcome change of pace. There are still minor puzzles to solve, but they're all self-contained, as in the solutions are never far away from the obstacles themselves. The most complex bit in this third of the game has to be the minecart switch puzzle. Basically you're able to ride this minecart, but there are also switches you can toggle on and off to determine where it goes. Classic grade school, back of the cereal box stuff, but it works. After you solve the puzzle and get the minecart to go where you need it to go... Wait a second, disc 2? Shoot, I didn't know there was a second disc. My download didn't come with 2 discs. Where's the second ISO? Oh, wait a second, here it is. You just click on the little tabby thing. I see what you did here. Disc 2 opens with this cutscene where we see Dracula for the first time since he was killed off in the intro cutscene.
What greater pain could I possibly inflict on him than impede his quest when time is so precious?
All he does is gloat that you're walking into your death. Great. Can't wait to sprinkle some garlic on him or whatever you end up doing at the end of this game. And Disc 2 is when the game starts to get, dare I say, good? That's when you get to Dracula's castle and the game becomes less of a where the fuck do I go kind of game and more of a how the fuck do I go kind of game. It's where most of the classic point and clicky use this item on that comes into play. Your obstacles are more clear and it's more about figuring out what you're supposed to do than where you're supposed to go. Back in the snow, I never really had any idea what the hell was going on. And that's on top of there already being nonsense point-and-click puzzle game interactions. Dracula's castle and the opening snow part are the difference between an unknown unknown and a known unknown. It's hard to solve puzzles in the snow when you don't even know what your objective is in the first place. Something I will say about Dracula Resurrection, which instantly renders it not scary, is that you can't die. There's no combat, there's no death mechanic, there's no obvious way to soft lock yourself, which would be scarier than death, of course. You never feel like you're in danger, and when there's no danger, there's no fear. We meet this old lady who is supposed to be unnerving. I think we're supposed to find her creepy, but she doesn't look any more or less like a spirit Halloween decoration than anyone else in this game. If anything, she's a lot more appealing than the old lady at the inn. She tells you that she knows where your wife is, but you need to get this necklace from Dracula for her first before she'll tell you where she is. After a lot of mist-like puzzles, you eventually meet the 3 brides of Dracula, which isn't something that the game invented because they're in the book too. And this could have been a really tense moment, but remember, you can't die in this game, so I don't really care.
Put that amulet down right now, or my sisters and I will make you die a horrible death.
Why aren't you attacking me? Unless you cannot, because the power of the dragon ring is protecting me. You're powerless against...
See, even John knows he's invincible. And since I'm invincible in this game, yeah, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna take your necklace and you can't do anything.
Interrupted exhaustion. You can hold out another few hours at most, whereas we have all of eternity.
That's their threat? That eventually I'm going to fall asleep and let my guard down? That's pathetic. Holy shit. As far as, like, final villain threats go. Boy, sure was convenient that within arm's reach there was a lever opening up a giant window in Dracula's castle. Why does Dracula's castle even have windows? They can only be used against him. We're almost at the end. John then finds his wife, who's asleep. Then they both make their escape using Dracula's flying machine that he got from Leonardo da Vinci. Which I know sounds ridiculous, and I'm not kidding, but believe it or not, it's actually in the book, so... No, I'm just kidding again. There's nothing like that in the book. They just slid in that Dracula met Leonardo da Vinci and got designs for a flying machine from him.
The young genius I met in Florence in 1468 turned out to be true. I have kept some of his sketches, especially this one of the flying machine.
And that's how the game ends. You never even confront Dracula, which is disappointing. So overall, to recap, Dracula Resurrection gets off to a wretched start. The ending was incredibly anticlimactic. It's not scary. It's hard to see what's going on. Everyone looked deranged, but the second disc minus the ending was okay. But nothing. Those are all valid complaints, and this game isn't very good. I'm definitely not itching to play the sequel anytime soon anyway. Not right now, at least. I guess there's always next year. Speaking of, I'll bet you didn't know Darkseid was on PlayStation. The second one is too, actually. Maybe next year. Darkseid 2 for PlayStation, yeah! But only in Japan, boo. No idea why, this game was originally in English. You would think the hard part would be porting it to PlayStation, then they could just reinsert the English dialogue. I can't imagine it being a poor business decision with development costs being next to nothing since you already, made the game. For the original Darkseid, all they did was translate the subtitles to Japanese, but the English voices were left intact. Not so with 2. Unfortunately for me, they dubbed it as well, meaning I can't play very much of the PlayStation edition. At least I can't play very much and get anything worthwhile out of it. But Darkseid 2 is one of those games that's worth talking about anyway. It's one of the most famous, or maybe infamous, cult games ever made. So the show must go on, and very anti the spirit of this video, I played through the PC version. I know. The title of this video says PS1 horror games, and I'm only talking about 2 games, and one of them effectively isn't even a PlayStation game anyway. Oh, I'm so bad. Darkseid 2 is a traditional point-and-click adventure which takes place directly after the events of the first game. Oh, what's that? You already knew this because Madular just did an over an hour-long deep dive into it? First off, Madular, that's cheating. You're supposed to wait until Halloween to release your Halloween video. Now it just looks like I'm copying him, but the joke's on you because I'm actually copying Peanut Butter Gamer and Retsupre. Darkseid 2 takes place about a year after the events of the first game. Mike Dawson has moved back home with his mom, and as a result of the trauma he suffered, remember from the whole alien being inserted into his brain thing, according to his mom, all he's been doing for the past year is mope around and stare at the wall all day.
It's breakdown, all you do is stare at the walls.
No, not that wall. Unfortunately for Mike, some Twin Peaks stuff has been happening around town. Your girlfriend was murdered and you're the prime suspect. The game starts and you're being interrogated by police about things that we don't even know.
You left out a lot. Witnesses said you and Rita left the banquet together. What happened when you two were alone?
The game just started. How am I supposed to know what I was doing the night she was murdered? It happened before the game started. The character Mike doesn't know either because he has the rock-solid alibi of, I don't remember.
Look, I don't remember being alone with Rita that night. I don't remember anything. I must have gotten drunk. Wanted to have a relationship, but Rita didn't.
And that's why you killed her.
Mike, you're screwed, aren't you? Eventually the sheriff leaves you alone so we can begin our own detective work to clear our name. But wait, Dark World stuff is also happening, and if you watch the TV, the lady from the box art tells you that the ancients are coming to take over the world again, and the key to go back to the Dark World is coming. Then the doorbell rings and someone hands Mike a ticket to this carnival, which is the obvious route of progression. This leads me into my largest complaint about Darkseid 2. Don't get me wrong, I like this game a lot, but its structure bothers me a little bit. There's no logical flow to the events of this game, as in a lot of the times, progression has nothing to do with solving a puzzle or figuring out where to go next, but is rather locked behind you either wasting enough time or talking to every NPC. Here, early on, the game basically just told me to go to the carnival, but if you try to do that, you'll find that it's not open yet, so you need to walk around town, talking to people until eventually it opens up. There are many such examples of this exact phenomenon littered throughout the game. A common way for this to progress is either by talking to your friend Jack on the front porch, or by being hypnotized by the therapist. We gain otherworldly insight this way, where Mike will hear conversations being had by other people, or will remember events that he had conveniently forgot. That's how we get our murder suspects. Either Jack tells us that someone is suspicious.
First, I didn't believe it. Then I thought about it, and it makes sense, I'm telling you. 2 folks who ain't what they seem. How about Mayor Fleming and Doc Larson?
Or we learn something in these hypnosis dream sequences that gives us a new lead. But you can't see the therapist or talk to Jack whenever you want. It's predicated on wasting time, or talking to certain NPCs which are never telegraphed. This is a game that forces you to listen to everyone and everything, whether you like it or not.
I think she was murdered by aliens from another dimension.
As I've got theories about a hired hitman and a satanic cult to follow up on. Don't worry, I'll find Rita's murderer and prove your innocence.
Gee, thanks, Slim. That makes me feel a lot better.
But thankfully, dialogue is this game's strong suit, so more often than not, you do want to listen to what people have to say. There are still puzzles, but nowhere near the same levels of the original Darkseid, or really even compared to any other point-and-click adventure game I've ever played. Rather, Darkseid 2 is much more focused on its characters and dialogue. It's nowhere near as difficult as the first game either, which is good because that game was bullshit. You can still die here, but there's no way to soft-lock yourself, at least no obvious ways I found, which if you recall was a major mechanic in Darkseid 1. That game was like Groundhog Day. It expected you to play it over and over again until eventually you figured out what to do. There was a strict timer, and if you didn't know exactly what you were doing, then you couldn't beat the game. 2 is a more traditional experience, and it's pretty easy. Anyway, let's circle back around and talk about those hypnosis dream therapy sessions. The first one we have, according to this, is that we were with Rita, Rita's the name of our girlfriend, the night she was killed. We had an argument and she stormed off.
Always busy doing stuff for the library. You never have any time to spend alone with me anymore. Why can't it be like it was when we were in high school?
As we already established, Mike doesn't remember anything the night of the murder, so he's effectively an unreliable narrator, even though we, the player, experience events in real time and we're the ones controlling Mike's actions. We're not literally him. What he says out loud isn't always what's going through his head. Sometimes the character Mike has more information than we do that we'll only find out through these therapy sessions. Remember this point because I'll be revisiting it when we talk about the ending. While we're waiting for the carnival to open up and talking to every character, we realize that everybody hates Mike.
How about a game of pool?
Cut the crap, Dawson. We might have been friends once, but that was a long time ago.
Everybody's such an asshole to you.
Sorry, Mike, but it's time that you got up. The sun has been shining for hours.
Ah yes, all great games begin with your mom nagging you out of bed. These conjoined twins seem to like me quite a bit.
Say, this guy looks delicious, doesn't he, Minnie?
My name's Mike Dawson.
Mike Dawson? Oh no! That was the name I was supposed to mail the key to. I think I made a big mistake.
Look, pretty boy, I'm not letting my sister say anything more. Go on, get out of here before we all get in big trouble.
Oh, never mind. I guess I fucked up somehow? Because they wanted to mail me a key, but they mailed it to someone else? Man, Mike can't catch a break.
Mom hates it when I leave the toilet seat up, but it's my little way of rebelling against the system.
Jeez, Mike, you're such a loser.
I've given myself a vacation for the first time in about 3 years. The store is closed right now. I'm just going to relax and water my lawn for the next week or two.
Wait, you're going to water your lawn for 2 weeks?
I think I have to leave now. You take real good care of yourself, Paul.
Yeah, you said it, Mike. Everyone here gives me the creeps. The only person who's nice to you is this guy named Jack. He wears a leather coat, and everyone always compares him to the Fonz, so I guess I will too. He looks like a balding Fonz.
Okay, Jack, how can I get myself out of this mess?
I think you can prove your innocence. If you can't remember what happened that night, we just gotta prove someone else did it.
Jack is everything that Mike is not. Mainly cool.
I don't want to touch this crate. I'd probably get a splinter or a spider bite.
Come on, Mike. Would Jack worry about getting a splinter? Eventually you make your way to the Dark World through this horrible maze, which thankfully after you solve once, there's a shortcut so you don't need to do it again. The plot is that aliens have invaded the Dark World, enslaved everyone, and now they plan to come to the Light World. The only problem being is that these aliens can't cross over into the Light World. Only Light Worlders can go into the Dark World. Dark Worlders can't go into the Light World so easily. So they need to get 4 human heads from the Light World to power this generator, which will enable this super being to cross over into our world so they can open a rift and let the aliens in. I know, it turns out our girlfriend's head was the only way that these aliens could take over the world. This means that somebody in the Light World, somebody in town is working with the aliens so they can take over the world. You're murder suspect number 1, so you're on a quest to clear your name, but at the same time, you're also on a quest to stop these aliens from taking over the world. Darkseid 2 is not a very tight narrative. Some side plots never go anywhere. such as the missing money, and later events render the subplots which do happen irrelevant, such as the fire killing Mr. Ramirez. Though this was probably intentional to throw players off the real mystery. The more you explore around town, the more you learn that Rita was off having sex with literally everyone, except for you.
He's got a collection of porno pictures. Oh my god! These are pictures of Rita!
I really think they hit on something with this main narrative. As we continue to investigate, more and more people end up dead around town, many of them being suspects who we thought were the killer. Remember that lawn watering guy? It turns out he's a satanic cult leader. Wait a second. Satanic cult? This was foreshadowed.
I've got theories about a satanic cult to follow up on.
In fact, everything that Boy Scouts said ended up happening.
She was murdered by aliens from another dimension.
Yeah, that happened.
But a hired hitman.
That happened. Holy shit. I really love this character because he's pretty much the only guy that Mike trusts because he listens to him about his theory about the aliens in the other world. But then as soon as he starts talking about other conspiracy theories, which end up being true over the course of the game's events, Mike loses interest and writes him off as a crackpot. The irony being, as the ending of this game will reveal, the only conspiracy that they share, that they have in common, ends up not being true. The lawn guy attacks us, and we kill him in self-defense, which sucks because his head ends up powering the generator. Then we're getting interrogated by this FBI agent.
Right, Dawson. Everybody's a psycho but you. No wonder Rita dumped you. Is that why you killed her?
Oh, shit. Well, okay, just stay calm. We'll tell the truth. Oh, shit, Mike. No. Oh.
Oh, no. I think I'm really in trouble.
So as the game progresses, the disconnect between the player's mindset and Mike's mindset really starts to manifest. He starts doing some completely irrational things beyond our control.
I'm glad I killed that creep.
Like, Jesus, Mike, I'm glad I killed that guy? Not something a sane person would say. Then we look in our girlfriend's mirror, and wait a second, Jack? What?
You thought you had everything pretty much figured out, didn't you, Mikey boy?
Eventually, the Dark Worlders get the 4 heads they need to power up the super being, but he turns out to not be that super because we kill him pretty easily. It's not even like a boss fight, you just kill him in a cutscene. Then we destroy the generator, severing the link between the light and the dark world, only then this happens.
Hey, wake up, Mikey boy. You've been out of it for a little while.
What happened to Dr. Sims? He's been stabbed.
We killed him. He was getting in the way.
What do you mean we killed Dr. Sims?
Don't you get it, Mikey boy? You and me, we're both one and the same. I don't exist at all. I'm you, and you are me, and we're all together. Get it?
We're too late.
Yeah, this game is awesome. Was the whole Dark World in my head? I think the best works of fiction make you want to go back and reevaluate everything after you have context of the whole story. And Darkseid 2 succeeds at that. And there's a lot of ways to read what happens at the end of this game, but here's my take. Everyone was an asshole to you because you're obviously a murderer. Let's go back to that unreliable narrator part. My theory is that whenever you're in the Dark World, you're not actually in the Dark World. You're just Jack in the Light World. Jack, his alter ego, is in the light world, carrying out all of these murders. That's why we never see them, that's why we have no memory of any of them, because we were in the dark world, but really we were in the light world murdering people. Just, we didn't know that. It's like we receded into our own mind to cope with the horrible things we were doing. Basically, this is a story of Mike reading way too much r/incels, learned that Rita was very open to having sex with everybody who wasn't him, and if he can't have her, then nobody can.
Bitch. She was never really interested in me. She was just toying with me.
So he killed her. Then to cover it up, he killed everybody who was onto him. But he couldn't deal with himself being a bad person like that, so he created Jack to run around doing all the horrible things. Despite what you may have heard about Darkseid 2, I think this is kind of a meme game in some circles. It's absolutely worth experiencing.
Here, Mike. This will explain everything.
But what do I know? Shout out to the patrons, shout out to William Robert Lee. Never trust anyone who needs a haircut. Happy Halloween.